Imagine a world where knowledge is a physical object, rare, expensive, and fragile. A world where a single book could cost as much as a farm. This was Europe before the 15th century. Every book, every document, every piece of writing had to be copied by hand. Monks and scribes spent months, sometimes years, hunched over desks, meticulously writing and illustrating each page. This slow, painstaking process meant that books were luxury items, owned almost exclusively by the very wealthy, the nobility, and the powerful Christian church. For the vast majority of people, the peasantry and the growing middle class, books and the knowledge they contained were completely out of reach. They lived in an information darkness, their understanding of the world shaped entirely by what local authorities, like the village priest or the feudal lord, told them. Ideas traveled at the speed of a walking person. A scientific discovery in Italy might take decades to reach England, if it ever did. This was a world where forgetting was a real danger, and where the past could easily be lost or rewritten by those in power. It was into this silent world that a man named Johannes Gutenberg was born. He was not a king or a scholar, but a goldsmith and metalworker from the German city of Mainz. He understood metals, how to shape them, how to make alloys, and how to craft intricate details. And he had a revolutionary idea, a vision that would pit him against the entire established order. He dreamed of a machine that could replicate words as easily as a coin press could replicate coins. He imagined a way to write without a pen, to create not just one copy, but hundreds, all perfectly identical. This dream, however, was a secret and dangerously ambitious project that would consume his life, his savings, and very nearly his future. Johannes Gutenberg did not invent something entirely from scratch. He was a master of combining existing technologies into a new, world-changing system. His genius lay in solving a complex puzzle. He needed a method to create movable, reusable letters. Using his skills as a goldsmith, he invented a hand mold that allowed for the rapid and precise casting of individual metal letters, or type. Each piece of type had a raised, reversed letter on one end. The brilliance was that he could create hundreds of identical copies of the letter A, ensuring that every printed looked exactly the same. The next piece of the puzzle was the ink. The water-based inks used by scribes would simply run off metal type. So, Gutenberg developed a thick, oil-based ink that would stick to the metal and transfer cleanly onto paper. The final piece was the press itself. He adapted the design of existing wine and olive presses, machines used for centuries to squeeze liquid from fruit. He modified this screw press to apply a firm, even pressure across a metal frame filled with his assembled type. In a secret workshop, funded by loans from a businessman named Johannes Fust, Gutenberg began his work. It was a race against time and debt. He had to train assistants, keep his methods secret to protect his invention, and perfect the process, all while his debts grew. Imagine the scene, a dimly lit room, filled with the smell of hot metal and oil ink, where a small team of men worked tirelessly, assembling tiny metal letters into lines, into paragraphs, into pages. They were building the first engine of mass communication, one letter at a time. After years of relentless work and experimentation, Gutenberg was ready. He needed a project to prove his machine's worth, a book so important, so magnificent, that it would stun the world. He chose the Bible. This was not just any book, it was the central text of Western civilization, the Word of God itself. Gutenberg set out to create a printed Bible that would rival, and even surpass, the most beautiful handwritten manuscripts. The work was immense. His team had to set type for over 1,200 pages, with each page containing around 2,500 individual pieces of metal type. They printed the main text in a sharp, formal typeface that mimicked the handwriting of the best scribes. But Gutenberg knew the power of beauty. After the pages were printed, he left spaces for illuminated letters and decorative borders, which were later added by hand by skilled artists, blending the new technology with traditional art. The result was the Gutenberg Bible, also known as the 42-line Bible. It was a breathtaking object. The text was perfectly uniform, clean, and elegant. For the first time in history, one could look at two copies of the same book and see that the words on page 57 were in exactly the same position. This was a miracle of precision. While we do not know the exact number, it is believed about 180 copies were printed, a staggering number for the time. The Gutenberg Bible was not just a book, it was a declaration. It announced to the world that knowledge could now be reproduced, perfectly and on a scale previously unimaginable. Just as Gutenberg was on the cusp of success, his dream began to unravel. The project had been incredibly expensive. The costs of paper, parchment, ink, metal, and paying his workers had drained the funds he had borrowed from Johannes Fust. Fust, the investor, grew impatient. He had loaned Gutenberg a vast amount of money and saw no return. He sued Gutenberg, demanding repayment of his loan with interest. The court case was a disaster for the inventor. The legal system could not comprehend the value of an unfinished, unproven machine. The judge ruled in Fust's favor. As part of the settlement, Gutenberg was forced to hand over his printing workshop, his tools, and his entire business, including the ongoing production of the Bibles, to Fust. Fust took over the operation, partnered with Gutenberg's former foreman, Peter Schoffer, and reaped the financial rewards and fame from the very invention he had sued over. Gutenberg was effectively pushed out of the enterprise he had dedicated his life to creating. He was left with nothing but his personal tools and a small printing setup. It was a crushing betrayal. The man whose invention would go on to generate immense wealth for others died in relative obscurity and financial hardship. The story of Gutenberg is a tragic reminder that the visionary who creates a revolution is not always the one who profits from it. He risked everything, lost almost all of it, but in doing so, he gave humanity a gift beyond measure. Despite Gutenberg's personal tragedy, his invention could not be contained. The knowledge of printing spread from Mainz like a shockwave across Europe. Print shops sprang up in cities like Venice, Paris, and London. The first media boom had begun. The cost of books plummeted. What once cost a fortune was now within reach of merchants, artisans, and a growing literate middle class. The printing press did not just make books cheaper, it made them more accurate. Scribes inevitably made mistakes, and each handwritten copy was a new opportunity for errors to creep in. With printing, an author could be sure that every copy of their work was an exact duplicate. This was crucial for science. A scientist in Poland could publish his findings, and a colleague in England could read the exact same words, verify the experiments, and build upon that knowledge. This accelerated the pace of discovery exponentially. It also led to the standardization of languages, as printed dictionaries and grammar guides helped to formalize spelling and rules. Maps could be reproduced accurately, leading to better navigation and exploration. The very way people thought began to change. Reading, once a communal activity where a priest read to a congregation, became a private, silent act, encouraging individual thought and critical thinking. The world was waking up from its long silence. The most immediate and explosive impact of the printing press was on religion. When a German monk named Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to a church door in 1517, his criticisms of the Catholic Church were not just for local debate. His words were printed and spread throughout Germany and beyond in a matter of weeks, reaching an audience of millions. This Protestant Reformation was the first mass media revolution in history. Without the printing press, Luther's ideas might have been suppressed as a local dispute. With it, they shattered the religious unity of Europe forever, leading to new Christian denominations and changing the political map of the continent. The press also empowered people to question authority. Pamphlets and books criticizing kings and governments could now be widely distributed, sowing the seeds for political revolutions like the American and French revolutions, which were fueled by printed works like Thomas Paine's Common Sense. The power was shifting from the few who controlled the manuscripts to the many who had access to printed ideas. Gutenberg's press created the modern world. It made the Renaissance possible, enabled the scientific revolution, and laid the groundwork for the Enlightenment and democracy. It is the direct ancestor of the Internet, the first technology to connect humanity in a web of shared knowledge. Johannes Gutenberg, the man who risked everything and lost, gave us the tool to build our world. He gave us the power to preserve the past, understand the present, and imagine the future. He truly gave us a voice.